Africa is one of the most diverse continents on Earth, endowed with plenty of natural resources, economic opportunities and a big market for consumer products. The continent of 54 nations, Africa is home to some of the fastest growing economies in the world and stands as one of the most attractive markets for foreign investors seeking business opportunities in emerging markets. The African economy is projected to reach a GDP of $29 trillion by 2050, from over $3 trillion, making Africa the second fastest growing economy in the world after Asia. While there are several ways to compare nations' wealth, one of the best methods is to evaluate each country's gross domestic product, GDP, which is the value of all the goods and services produced by a nation in a given year. In this video we are going to look at the 10 richest countries in Africa by GDP according to data provided by the IMF. Please do not forget to like this video and sharing with us your opinion on the economies of these nations and the African continent at large. Number 10, Ghana. Ghana is one of the largest economies in Africa. The West African nation has the second biggest economy in West Africa, and is one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. Ghana is the world's second largest cocoa producer behind Ivory Coast and Africa's biggest gold miner, producing over 100 metric tons of gold every year. A combination of a conducive business environment, committed and progressive government-private sector participation, political stability, transparent regulations, and a thriving private sector, are some of the reasons to Ghana's recent economic boom. About 3/5 of Ghana's GDP is derived from the services sector, 1/5 from agriculture, and industry contributing about 1/4, with its total GDP standing at $73.8 billion. Number 9, Tanzania. Tanzania is one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, and one of Africa's most attractive investment destinations. Tanzania has sustained 2 decades of sustained economic growth, being among the 10 fastest growing economies in Africa during the same period, with an annual average growth of 7%. In July 2020, Tanzania reached a major milestone, graduating from a low-income country to a middle-income country 5 years than predicted before. The East African nation has a GDP of about $77.5 billion, with agriculture, mining, tourism, manufacturing, livestock and fishing driving the Tanzania's economy. The country's political stability, natural endowments and strategic geographic position are just some of the few factors which has helped Tanzania to maintain its position as one of the biggest economies in Africa in the past few years. Number 8, Ethiopia. With an annual GDP growth of about 11% in the last 14 years, Ethiopia has enjoyed one of the fastest economic growth in the world in the past decade. The country's economic growth has been led by capital accumulation through public infrastructure investments and foreign direct investment, among other factors. Ethiopia's nominal GDP is about $105.3 billion. Agriculture sector, service sector, financial services, manufacturing, transport and tourism sectors contribute a large part of Ethiopia's economy, with its national airline Ethiopian Airlines, which is the biggest airline in Africa in terms of passengers carried, destinations served, fleet size and revenue, standing as a great example of the country's thriving transport sector. Number 7, Kenya. An East African country well known for its vast landscapes and wildlife is next on the list of Africa's richest countries by GDP. Kenya's economy has rebounded well from the disruptions caused by the pandemic, growing by 6.8% in the first quarter of 2022. This is according to Kenya's National Bureau of Statistics. The largest economy in East and Central Africa, Kenya's economy almost doubled in a period of 8 years, from $58.1 billion in 2014 to $114.6 billion in 2022. Kenya's major industries include agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, manufacturing, energy, tourism, and financial services. Number 6, Angola. Angola, a vast country with a long coastline and central plateau. In the past few years, Angola's economy has suffered heavily from the effects of lower oil prices and production levels despite significant progress on macroeconomic stability and structural reforms. However, thanks to the recent surge in oil prices, the economy of the southern African nation has begun recovering. Crude oil sales accounts for more than 1/3 of Angola's economy, and 95% of its exports. Angola's nominal GDP is $124 billion. Number 5, Morocco. Morocco's economy is considered as a liberal economy by experts, governed by the law of supply and demand. Privatization in some sectors since 1980s has had positive results in Morocco's economy, helping the growth of its economy and infrastructure. The service sector accounts for just over half of the GDP, with industries sector consisting of mining, construction and manufacturing, contributing about a quarter of the country's GDP, and agriculture about 14% of Morocco's GDP. The North African country has a GDP of about $133 billion, making it the 5th largest economy in Africa. Number 4, Algeria. An economy dominated by export trade of petroleum and natural gas, Algeria is one of the largest economies in Africa. The economy of Algeria has primarily depended on hydrocarbons since 1960s when it began extraction of the mineral resources. Algeria is the world's 6th largest exporter of natural gas. Oil and gas account for almost 95% of export revenues and more than 30% of GDP. The economy of Algeria stands at $193.6 billion, making it the 4th biggest economy in Africa. Number 3, South Africa. The South African economy is essentially based on the private sector. Since the end of World War II, South Africa has established a well-developed manufacturing base, and has since then remained Africa's most industrialized nation. The most industrialized, technologically advanced, and diversified economy in Africa, South Africa has the 3rd biggest economy in Africa, with a GDP of $426 billion. A unique combination of a highly developed first world economic infrastructure and a huge emergent market economy has given rise to a strong entrepreneurial and dynamic investment environment, and has made South Africa a gateway to emerging markets in Africa for many years. Number 2, Egypt. The recent surge in economic activity has set Egypt on track to achieve economic supremacy on the African continent. Egypt's economic growth has been strong and resilient since the economic reforms initiated in 2016, when Egypt began liberalization of the capital account, which attracted foreign investors into the country. The North African nation has witnessed a remarkable rise in retail market sales, and products influx from major international companies, attracting many international brands. Egypt has a GDP of about $435.6 billion. Number 1, Nigeria. Nigeria has stood as Africa's biggest economy since 2020, when it re-emerged as the continent's biggest economy. Africa's most populous nation and the 7th most populous nation in the world, Nigeria is a compelling investment destination endowed with plenty of natural resources and a big market for consumer products. The economy of Nigeria is a middle-income, mixed economy and emerging market, with expanding manufacturing, financial, service, communications, technology, and entertainment sectors. The Nigeria economy, which is $510 billion according to the IMF, is heavily dependent on the oil industry, which accounts for more than 90% of the country's total export earnings. There you have it. Those are the 10 richest countries in Africa. You can share with us what you think on the comments section, and do not forget to check out our other videos about Africa displayed on screen.